This is All India Radio. Under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series of Spotlight program, now we bring you a discussion on India's strides in agriculture and farm sector. The participants are Professor Ramesh Chand, member, Niti Aayog, and Sanjeev Mukherjee, journalist.
As India is celebrating its 75th Independence Day, we are here to discuss the progress of agriculture and the roadmap for its future with one of the most foremost agriculture economists of the country, Dr. Ramesh Chand, also a member of Niti Aayog. Good evening, Dr. Chand. First and foremost, I would like to know from you, you have been a keen and a very avid follower of Indian agriculture for very long and its progress. According to you, how has been the journey since independence that we have transgressed so far as Indian agriculture is concerned?
I will divide the post-independence period in three phases. There was a first phase immediately after independence. We were able to bring very large area under agriculture. So in that period, area became the main source of growth of agriculture. But by mid-60s, Indian agriculture entered into a sort of crisis, and we have to depend very heavily on imports. Even imports were not able to meet our requirements. So we faced a very large-scale problem of undernutrition and hunger. So then we started with Green Revolution during late 60s, and then since then, Indian agriculture have moved ahead in leap and bounds. So if I look at this post-Green Revolution period, our growth rate in every decade has remained not only higher than but was growth rate in population. Even this gap between growth rate in production of agriculture, food production and population, it has become larger and larger in terms of advantage in this food production growth. So I will just give you one statistic before I take your second question, that if I look at this journey during last 40 years between 1980 and 2020, in this period, despite big growth in our population, we are able to increase per capita food production 2 times. In the beginning of 1980s, we were producing 1 kg food per person per day. But in year 2020, we were producing almost 2 kg food per person per day. So this is, in brief, I look at achievement of Indian agriculture.
And as you rightly said, we have moved from a very dark period of shortages and deficits in many commodities and many agriculture produced to almost surplus in many commodities. Obviously, there are few commodities which we are still short and deficit in. In the last 75 years, there has been a lot of technological advances also in agriculture, this thing. So what, according to you, was the cornerstone, or according to you, what has been the main trigger for this increase in food production from what you said, doubling from 1 kilogram per person per day to almost 2 kilograms per person per day? What has been the main triggers, or what has been the main thing?
I would say that when we started with era of plant development in 1950-51, so we came with many reforms. Land reform, we came with the big plan for medium irrigation, major irrigation, and also other kind of rural infrastructure. So that created a very good ground for growth of agriculture. But technology was not available then. Improved technology was not available with then. So when we started with Green Revolution technology, I would say that was the big driving force for growth rate of agriculture sector, and that was given huge support by enabling policies, by favorable policies, and the enthusiasm and hard work of our farmers. So I attribute this increase post 1960 to this technology. It has been a technology-led growth, which is a policies and which is made possible by hard work of our farmers.
One big factor, which we all point out, is that in the last 75 years, the growth in agriculture is obviously we have done very well in many spheres, but there are some areas which are left behind. Like we have not managed to have a very balanced growth and balance a uniform with this thing, which is actually now impacting us with skewed production growth in some commodities and very low productivity and production growth in other commodities. So how do you see this? Did we concentrate wrongly on some crops, or it was needed at that time?
No, it was very much needed at that time because the most important item of food are food staples. So right. We initially focused on rice and wheat because they are the food staple for vast majority of our population. So once we reached a stage of near self-sufficiency in these cereals, the attention was paid to other crops, even to dairy, to poultry. So if you look at a different type of food, I would say that even in case of edible oil, in a particular phase, we made a big progress. But we still remain dependent on import of edible oil for the reason that per capita intake of edible oil has increased at a very, very fast rate. The growth rate of demand for edible oil in some phases has been more than 2 times the growth rate in demand for cereals. But of late, there is a stagnation in productivity of oilseed sectors, and government is taking necessary measures to address that. We also had deficiency of pulses for some period, but last 6-7 years we got very good growth in pulses. Their production, I think, last 7 years or so increased by 60%. So we have achieved a lot, even in case of pulses also after cereal. We made very impressive progress in fruit and vegetable, which is still continuing. Similarly in milk, similarly in poultry, in meat, and in fact fishery. Fishery growth is last 10 years, you find growth rate is more than 7%, which is quite high. So except in the case of oilseed that we could not raise our production to keep pace with the growth rate in demand, in all other sectors I find that the performance of Indian agriculture has been quite satisfactory and quite impressive. And in the case of oilseed, now you must be knowing that so many initiatives taken. Government of India has come with this oil palm initiative, National Mission on Oil Palm, and trying to increase area under oil palm in northeast and in southern state of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And reason for starting this mission on palm oil is that we have area constraints, and palm oil generates very high oils. 1 acre of palm oil can give us as much oil as 10 to 15 acres of, say, mustard or groundnuts. So that is the reason that now these missions are started. Not only palm oil, even attention is being focused on other kind of oil also. So I am expecting that next 5-6 years we will be able to reduce our import dependence, even in case of edible oils. But overall, if you look at our surpluses and our deficits, so you will just find that our export of agri-food commodities are more than 2 times what is the import. So no doubt we are importing edible oil, but our export pay more than 2 times of what we pay in the import.
This also brings to the question of farmers' income, and that has been one of the main drawbacks of agriculture policy so far since independence. Do you think this is a very correct assessment? And we have been talking about doubling farmers' income and this thing. Do we need to now focus purely on pushing income of farmers?
No, we do need to pay attention on income of farmers for the same reason that earlier we gave primacy to growth in output. And the assumption was that growth in output will automatically bring increase in income of farmers also. That brought increase in income of farmers, but not to the desired extent. So that's why the present government, especially our Prime Minister, he gave this slogan of doubling farmer income. The main purpose of this was this paradigm shift that we will fix a goal around increase in income of farmers, and when we are increasing income of farmers, the growth rate in output will follow. So this, I call it a paradigm shift, which was very much needed, that at one time when we have large shortages, we need to give primacy to growth in output, and once we shift from shortages to surpluses, we need to give primacy to increase in income of the farmer.
In this doubling farmers' income, there are reports and studies also. What, according to you, should be the main constituents which can double the income of farmers? But what should be the main strategy here?
No, it is not one factor which will be needed for this. From Niti Aayog side, when we prepared the framework for doubling farmer income, we identified 6-7 factors. So some factors are continuing, like increase in productivity. So earlier through Green Revolution, we achieved a major increase in productivity in irrigated area, Northwest India and deltaic regions, But now we started this bringing green revolution to Eastern India. So you find that as this green revolution technology is expanding to Eastern India, we are getting improvement in productivity. So productivity increase is one source of growth in farmers' income. Several things are done for that taking technology, expanding irrigation, promoting use of modern input, extension, etc., etc. The second source of growth is, which is more the demand-driven source, that is diversification toward high-value crops. The demand for fruit, vegetable, milk, egg is rising at a much faster rate than the growth rate in demand for cereals. So this diversification toward high-value crops and also toward high-value alternative and options like horticulture produce and livestock produce, that is the second source. Because depending upon the state, a 1 acre under horticulture crop can give you 3 to 6 times the income that you get from the other field crops. So this diversification, again, the second very important source of growth. The third important source of growth is that our farmers should have better price realization, improving competitiveness in the market, enabling farmer to get better prices. This is the third important source of growth and income of the farmers. The fourth important source is to enhance possibility of non-farm income by the farmers. That they should get income not only from agriculture activity, they should also be getting income from non-farm activities, and some of the farmers, they should be moving to non-farm occupations. So these are the four main sources of growth in the income of Indian farmers.
And as we all know that marketing of agriculture produce remains a big challenge. There has been a lot of measures taken, and very lately we all know about the acts that came to public domain. Now that we have moved out of that, we have passed on that, what according to you should be done to ensure that agriculture produce gets the proper market and there are not too many intermediaries in between?
Adoption of new formula for MSP. I think that has also played very important role in increasing price realization by our farmers. So going into the future, I would say that we need to walk on both the legs. One is that we need to see to it that the scope of MSP is increased, and government has already come out with more schemes that not only procurement, even this PM Asha, that we can also go for price deficiency payment and also other options to see to it that MSP in those situations where market is not paying MSP to the farmer to procure more and more produce. That is one, that MSP route. And second is that somehow, which is the ultimate, that to make market competitive. There are so many things needed there. One is, of course, private sector participation in market is increasing, even though the three central farm law have been withdrawn. But I find there is a renewed interest among the private sector, and some of the states, they are trying to harness that option, that how to take advantage of increased interest in the private sector to make investment in agriculture markets, in logistics, in processing. That is already, we just see that it is happening. And I would also say that now it is incumbent upon the states to think of what was being discussed before these three central acts were brought. That now you think of Model APLM Act, Model Contract Farming Act. So it is very important that states should pay attention to these kind of things.
And also land and water. These are, from the ecological point of view, there are a lot of challenges, isn't it, to Indian agriculture?
We can address a part of that through adoption of improved technology. When I talk of technology, it is not only for increasing production, it is also for improving efficiency. You talked about water. If we are giving flood irrigation, we require X amount of water. If we shift to drip irrigation, we will require not only half of X, maybe we will only require 0.1x for that. So when I talk about technology, I cover efficiency, which is then related to sustainable use of water, ecological aspect also.
I think with this we can wind up this wonderful discussion, Dr. Chand, and it was really nice to talk to you on this very vital issue of Indian agriculture on 75 years of our independence. Thank you, Dr. Chand.
Thank you, Sajeev.
You were listening to a discussion on India's strides in agriculture and farm sector under the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav series. The participants were Professor Ramesh Chand, member, Niti Aayog, and Sanjeev Mukherjee, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our YouTube channel, News on AIR Official. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.